There's a bunch of turmoil going on within the Houston Texans organization. The owner, McNair, hired Nick Caserio, a GM, to be the new GM of the team, and he had promised Deshaun Watson that Deshaun Watson would have an input on the GM and he'd help him decide on it. But it goes to show that never happened. So Deshaun Watson is disgruntled with the organization. They didn't request to interview Eric Bieniemy until now. Maybe some damage control there so Deshaun Watson doesn't choose to leave. But now we're seeing tweets coming out from Andre Johnson telling Deshaun Watson to get out of there. They're going to ruin your career. DeAndre Hopkins co-signing that same thing. And now, I mean, we could go into depth on the Deshaun Watson situation with the Texans or whatever it may be, but I think it's better if we just have a little fun with this situation going on right now and come up with a trade package for Deshaun Watson and what teams should trade for Deshaun Watson. So in your opinion, what is your best trade package for Deshaun Watson, and what team do you think pulls the trigger or is most likely to pull the trigger?
I'll say right now, I think that this is a lot bigger of a problem than people might think it is. Some people are trying to write it off. Jack Easterby has walked in and done nothing but bad for that organization, and Andre Johnson said it in his tweet. He is the demon inside that organization, and they have not gotten rid of him. They let him handpick the GM. The GM's not going to get rid of him because he handpicked him. So it's a bad situation. I don't see it getting better quickly. It's going to take a lot of healing. So realistically, I could see one of these trades happening, and if it was going to, I think the Dolphins are the most realistic place. I think the Jets could be in on it, but it would take a lot of draft capital, maybe a package surrounding Sam Darnold and a couple of firsts, especially with those extra Seahawks picks. I think they could get it done. I think the 49ers should and could be in on it with, a couple of the pieces that they have over there, and they could use a quarterback anybody could use a quarterback of Deshaun Watson's capability. But I would say the Dolphins could put together the best package because they have a young quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa who, we both have our opinions on him, but you've only seen him in 9 games. The jury's still out, I feel like. Who knows what he can be? So you throw him in. I personally think it would take 3 first-round picks. I would say their second pick, their 18th pick, maybe next year's first-rounder, and then a day 2 or 3 pick. But I think the 3 first-rounders, Tua, and a later-round pick could get it done, especially if it comes down to Deshaun Watson saying he's just not going to take the field.
For me, before I get into my trade package, I have the Dolphins as well as a team, the most likely destination. But I just want to put everybody's dreams and hopes of these fan bases to rest. The Colts cannot trade for Deshaun Watson.
No.
The Texans will never agree to that trade because they're in the same division. The Jaguars neither. That's not happening. That's just not happening. The Chicago Bears can't do it either. They don't have any cap space. For me, the 3 most realistic destinations are the New York Jets, the Dolphins, and the Jaguars because they have a bunch of first-round picks and they're picking high in the draft. That being said,
if you're going to get rid of Deshaun Watson, who is the best guy to replace him?
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence.
And that being said, I don't think the Jets pulled the trigger because they don't have enough players on that team to give up so many future assets for a guy. And plus, Deshaun Watson would have to agree to want to go play there. Maybe if Eric Bieniemy becomes the head coach of the Jets, Deshaun Watson is going to agree to it because he wants to be with Eric Bieniemy, and maybe the Jets pull the trigger. But I think the most realistic destination is Miami Dolphins, and this is the trade package. The Dolphins receive Deshaun Watson, and the Texans receive Tua Tagovailoa, Nick Needham, a solid slot cornerback who the Texans need cornerback help desperately, secondary help desperately, so you get a starter in Nick Needham. Then you get the 2021 first-round pick, the 3rd overall pick this year, a 2021 second-round pick from Houston as well. So Houston gets their picks back from the Laramie Tunsil trade. They get a 2021 third-round pick and a 2022 first-round pick. So you now have one pick in the first round in this upcoming draft, one pick in the second round, and 2 picks in the 3rd round. And then for next year, you have a 1st-round pick as well. And I think this is the best case scenario for both teams. The Dolphins are ready to compete right now. And Deshaun Watson, if he goes to the Dolphins, that takes them over the top, no doubt about it. They become a Super Bowl contender, I think so, or at least one of the teams that are going to be winning the division for a couple of seasons. And we've seen it, like the Dolphins don't have the most offensive line talent, but look at what Deshaun Watson did in the Texans. Like, he can turn nothing into something. Then for the Texans, you save some of your money because they're in cap hell right now. They can't sign anybody. You start from scratch and you start rebuilding. Because even if they do keep Deshaun Watson, they won't be competitive for a couple of years because their cap space is so bad and they don't have any picks this season. They need secondary. They need linebackers. They need defensive line. They lost DJ Reader to the Bengals. J.J. Watt's probably on his way out this offseason as well. They need an offensive line outside of Laramie Tunsil. They need a tight end, and they probably need a halfback too. They need so much positions that you kind of have to start a rebuild, and just keeping Deshaun Watson there is making him become a modern-day Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Dolphins. Although they still have some holes to fill, that defense was already at an elite level this past season, I would say, and they still have a lot of money left. Even if they trade for Deshaun Watson, they still have very, very good money to go out there and make some free agent signings, maybe shore up that line, bring in another wide receiver, bring in a star running back. I saw Aaron Jones, his name had been floated around talking with the Dolphins, so they could be scary next year if they trade for Deshaun Watson and for years to come too, because they're pretty young when you look at their roster and their key players. So they're in great shape. But realistically, I think the only way the Texans end up moving Deshaun Watson is if he comes out and says, I'm not playing. I'm not playing any more games for the Texans. But I think that would be the best thing for them.
He could do that because I remember when Carson Palmer didn't want to play for the Bengals anymore. And he sat out. He retired. I don't know if Deshaun Watson is in that position because the money from his second contract hasn't kicked in yet. So he only has money from his rookie deal. That's huge. That's a huge reason to keep playing. So it's really on him, and I don't think you pass up on that type of money. I know I wouldn't. So it makes it hard, but we could be potentially looking at history right now. If Deshaun Watson does sit out, this could possibly lead to a domino effect where NFL players start having the control that NBA players have now.
That's a great point. I was just going to say we've seen what happened in the NBA. I feel like LeBron kind of shifted the league to a players' league, starting with the decision, and from there, it became what it is now, a totally player-dominant league. You can do anything you want, essentially, and you get your way if you're a player in the NBA. The way they've wrote the CBA, whatever it may be. In the NFL, we talked about it last year with the Jamal Adams saga. He really didn't have much leverage at all. He had to play, and if he didn't play, he wouldn't have, had time count towards his service time. So he would have been a Jet for 2 years, for the next 5 years if he sat out. Just the way they wrote the CBA, the players don't have a lot of control. But Deshaun Watson is one of a handful of guys in the league that could really change that because, he is that kind of talent. I think if you were redrafting the NFL, like a fantasy draft right now, he would go at least top 5, if not top 3. The only guy I would definitely take ahead of him is Patrick Mahomes. And then beyond that, he's right up there with that echelon of talent. And we haven't seen anybody at that level he hasn't made a request yet, but have problems like this to the point where he might request a trade. At least, I can't think of any recently.
They said the last one that was a quarterback was Jay Cutler, and he doesn't have the superstar of Deshaun Watson. So this would definitely be history